Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. It is Monday, June 21st, 2021, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And we're continuing where we left off last week, looking at the Dungeon Master's Adventure Log from 1980. So this is a part 2 for that. It's not a huge product, but it purports to be very useful. There's the cover right there. I think we'll just bring up that cover. I want to just take a quick look at what we did last week. So we looked at the cover, and we looked at the back, and the back has a bunch of sales text for kind of a catalog text of other stuff that's available, and then it has an example of each of the two sheets forms that you fill out for this product. And we looked at those. We looked at this example of those two. But remember, each of those is its own full sheet. But there are a number of pages with tables. 1, 2, 3, 4 tables. And then we didn't look at those. We'll look at those today. What we also had were how to use this product, right, after the cover. And it just details potential abbreviations that you can use to fill out the forms. And they're fairly detailed, and it's pretty good. So if you want to see any of that stuff, watch last week's show that's archived there on YouTube. We'll look at the rest of this today. I want to jump ahead, though, to this page, because I think it's important to know if you're a straight-up first edition player, this is not first edition. This is, in all likelihood, some form of basic. It's not original D&D, and it's not first edition. How they have this for listening at doors, 2 and 20 for the dwarf, elf, 3 and 20, 15%. It's got the percentages down there. You're rolling a 20 for listening. So I am sure that this is not exactly what you would want if you are strictly running a first edition game. So just a word of warning. But I will show you what's on here, because a lot of this stuff carries over quite easily and translates well enough. You can double check most of it if you wanted to. I may do that myself before I use this specifically in my own games. But for me, the value of this particular product, which came out in 1980, so it's well before second edition. So don't make the mistake thinking this is upgraded to second edition stuff. Some of it may be similar, but this was not meant to be a second edition product at all. So the value for me in this product is the forms, the log, being able to keep track of things. These extra tables, I think they're actually tremendous if they were correct to the rules for me. I may go through them, make some adjustments to them, and print them out just to have them handy. What I used to do, since I like to use clipboards, I always try to keep a couple of clipboards around when I'm DMing, so I can have maps on one and details on the other. But then I would laminate right to the back of the clipboard some of the tables that I wanted that were beyond the stuff that is on the DM screens, and then also on the inside. And I liked having interesting things on those too, whether it be lists of names for random characters or character traits, NPC traits. You know, things that you can at a moment say, yeah, he's got a curled lip. He kind of has a sort of a permanent snarl on his face, but he's smiling and he seems friendly enough. So, you know, you get those nice dichotomies between the way someone looks and how they're acting, which doesn't need to be a indicator of anything, but it makes it interesting and it keeps people on their heels a little bit. It's okay to have some NPCs that are face value, but it's good to have most be basically innocuous but look potentially dangerous or troubling or problematic, and then let the villains hide in plain sight that way. So, some of the tables that are on here, we'll go over these fairly quickly because the modifications, particularly on this, to hit modifications for these spells is interesting. And then also for things like rear attack, opponent off balance, stunned, partially immobile, completely immobile, automatic. You don't have to roll to hit somebody who's completely immobilized. Opponent invisible, there's their -4. Two weapons, prime and secondary, if you're using two weapons, -2, -4. Charge +2, there you go. Moderate intoxication. Great intoxication. What could be better than great intoxication? Now, see, this is what you get for stuff that this old. Think of the children. That's probably why he's drinking so much. Anyway, thief, assassin, backstabbing. Good to have that on there. All of these are excellent. And then, of course, you've got extra adjustments here and here for prayer and holy word. Asterisks, so a little more information down the bottom because they change depending on the level of the creature or opponents. This one here, what was that from? Oh, for blur. Okay. Then you've got some hit point modifiers. Right? I don't know if you necessarily need those at the ready, but they are interesting. Moderate intoxication, great. Were they drinking when they made this? This is crazy. Progression on combat tables. Now this is a really good table to have, or explanation of how the tables work. Remember, this is pre-THACO. This is pre to hit armor class 0 number, and then you just add or minus. So on the DM screen combat tables, you had multiple 20s. And the thing you had to remember, and take a look at it right here, right? 21 and so on and so forth, natural, natural, natural. That first 20 you could reach on a die result with a bonus. Let's say you rolled an 18 and you have a +2 to hit. That gets you to that first 20. That next 20 needs to be a natural 20. You can't just add your bonuses onto a die roll and get there. So on those tables where it had your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, those had to be natural 20s, and that was the only way to hit those. In a sense, you might consider that a sort of a precursor to requiring a critical hit. But let me read what this says because it's a good explanation. Progression on the combat tables. A quick glance at the progression of numbers on the combat tables will reveal that 20 is repeated. This reflects the fact that a 20 indicates a perfect hit. It also, incidentally, helps to assure that opponents with high armor class value are not hit-proof in most cases. Should any DM find that this system offends his or her sensibilities, the following modification is suggested. Consider the repeated 20 as a perfectly aimed attack which does not gain any benefit from strength or magical properties of any sort, spell, missile, or weapon. That is, the 20 must be attained by a roll of natural 20. All bonuses accrue only up to and including a total of 20, so that even if a character attacked with a bonus for strength of +3 and a +3 magic sword, he or she would normally have to roll a natural 20 in order to score a hit on any creature normally hit by the second or successive repetitions of 20, i.e. the bonus +3 in this example could not exceed a total score of 20 unless an actual 20 is rolled. Thus, combat tables would be amended to read like this. And notice this 21 here. It's a natural 20 with at least a +1 bonus to get to that one. So this is their way of making sure that very high armor class creatures are still possible to hit, but also to honor the fact that high armor classes are high armor classes. They are tough to hit, should be tough to hit, and that's just the way it is. So there you go. And we move on to damage modifiers for various spells and stuff, but also thief backstabbing reminds you that depends on the levels. Check out the player's handbook. Now notice this is mentioning page 27 of the player's handbook, first edition. So there you go. Let's see. Actually, when I was talking about that listening earlier, that actually may be a Unearthed Arcana adjustment. I'll have to double check that. But that would bode well for the rest of these things, because the rest of these things are definitely Player's Handbook stuff, and that definitely helps solidify that. Ranger versus Giant class, +1 per Ranger, per level of the Ranger. Monk with weapons, +1/2 of the level of the Monk. Monks are good like that. Armor class modifiers. Otto's Irresistible Dance. A lot of these are corner case things, obviously, if they're just individual spells. Flank attack, rear attack. AC is without shield. Don't forget that. No dex bonus. No dex bonus are any of these things. Flank attack, rear attack. Large missiles. So if somebody throws a house at you, or indeed if giants throwing rocks or catapult boulders, trebuchet is chucking a boulder at you. Magical attacks, no dex bonus. Keep that in mind. Charge, no dex bonus. Charge AC +1. Penalty only if creature had no dex bonus. That's interesting, right? Great Helm, head only. A lot of people don't deal with the whole idea of, hey George, welcome to the chat. A lot of people don't deal with the idea of whether or not you have a helmet with your armor. A lot of people say, well, it's included, so they don't like to deal with the possibility that somebody's always going for the headshot, like would probably happen. So people kind of maintain a cognitive dissonance in regard to that little factoid. Armor class bonus for cover and concealment. This is good stuff to know and have at the ready, especially if there's a lot of missile fire going around. Right? Typical inhabitants. This is an interesting thing, and we'll talk a bit about adjusting this. The bulk of people encountered on an adventure in an inhabited area, whether city, town, village, or along the roads through the countryside, will be average folk, with no profession as adventurers know it. and no special abilities for clericism, fighting, magic, or thievery. They are simply typical normal people, as you define typical and normal for the milieu. Of course, we slipped in milieu. That was nice of them. A little nod to Gary there. When dealing with these types, it is suggested that the following factors be used. And here's where I gotta change things, obviously. General classification, hit points, and combat abilities are the column headers. Sedentary females, sedentary males, active males, laboring females, laboring males. Just general hit points for them, and combat ability, which is usually not good. I would suggest changing this to children and adults. Their point here back in the day was to say that males are physically superior to females. They don't make a distinction of whether they're elves or humans or anything here, but this was some of the misogyny that was baked into D&D back in the day. It's not worth getting into a tizzy over. Just change it to children and adults on each of these categories, and I think it works just fine. It still becomes a useful table then, whether they're sedentary, active, or actually laboring, which is to say fairly strong. That gives you those hit point ranges. And why wouldn't a 13-year-old, 14-year-old youngster who's laboring in the fields every day, why wouldn't they be fairly capable physically, right? And be able to at least throw a punch or defend themselves if they were being attacked. So I think it's good to just change these to children and adults. Obviously, for certain children under a certain age, under a certain size, infants, whatever, you're not going to have this kind of a situation. This says sedentary occupations are those which individual does nothing or is a clerk, scribe, etc. Active occupations are those involving considerable movement and activity, such as serving maid, carpenter. Laboring occupations are strenuous, including farming, mining, and most menial labor tasks. You see, I'd put blacksmiths and carpenters up in this sort of a thing anyway. But there you go. Make some adjustments as you like. Surprise, a little more detailed here. Surprise is determined by rolling a 6-sided die for each party concerned, modifying the result by using the most favorable member of the party, i.e. Ranger, surprised only on a roll of 1, will represent the whole of a group of other character types. And, play that up, too. If you roll for surprise, and generally it's a 1 or a 2 on a 6-sider, and you roll a 3, 4, 5, or 6, okay, nobody's surprised. If they have a Ranger in the party and thus are only surprised on a 1, and you roll a 2, and they're not surprised because of the Ranger, make sure you talk to the Ranger as if the Ranger is the one that is not surprised and is alerting everybody. They're being alerted based on the fact that you're just saying all this stuff out loud, so they're not surprised anyway. But let it narratively be the Ranger that is the one that has foiled the surprise from some opponent that's jumping out at him. Let's see. Ranger rolled a 1, represent the whole party. Note, however, the effect of dexterity as detailed below. The same holds for mixed types of monsters. If surprise is indicated for both parties concerned, the party which has a lesser surprise subtracts its result from the result of the greater to find the number of segments. Remember segments? The latter are inactive. Don't forget, turns are 10 minutes. 1 round is 1 minute, so 10 rounds in a minute. 1 segment is 6 seconds, so 10 segments in a round. Nonetheless, it is possible for both parties to be surprised equally, with surprise thus having no effect. Although, it's kind of fun to have people round a corner, and even if nobody's surprised, have them blink at one another for a moment while they kind of wrap their head around what the situation is. George in the chat says, surprise is huge for an encounter. Party can get in the hole very fast. Yeah, it is very true. If people are well behind on the number of segments lost after being surprised, a whole round of hits can come at you. And if you then lose initiative too, you're basically giving people a chance to attack you twice before. Not that you can have a lot to do with it. Doesn't hurt to get yourself a ranger in the party. Both surprised, monster surprised, parties die roll, monster die roll. Still a little comparison here, but it's pretty easy to keep track of. Just roll for each and compare them, right? It gives you examples. I won't read through those because I think it's fairly self-explanatory. George also says, throw in some magic crowd control and watch out. Yeah, right? Avoiding encounters. This is an interesting thing to add into this supplement. It is always possible to flee from an undesired confrontation if the other party is surprised. It is never possible to flee from an encounter where the opponent party is in striking range. The party can always flee an encounter if it gains the first initiative. Whether or not the opponent party will follow in pursuit of the fleeing party depends on the following factors. What you, number one, the Dungeon Master, have stated in your key concerning the encounter, if applicable. This is first and foremost in all cases. So, for instance, you've got a bandit group that's created a new hideout near a road, and they're just starting to plunder or rob people along that road. And it's not far from the sheriff. They've kind of taken a big risk, but they know that the rewards will be greater, so they've done this. Well, if they know that, they also know if someone flees, they can get to the sheriff fairly quickly. So they're going to follow you. They're going to try to stop you from getting to the sheriff. So they're going to chase you if you flee, because they know that it is very risky for them to let you just go. Number two, what the stated characteristics of the creatures involved are. That is, if player characters, do they say they will pursue? Or if monsters, does their description say that they will always seek to pursue? So, sometimes better part of valor, right? If the group is fairly sizable that's fleeing, well, maybe they think twice about attacking that opponent, right? Maybe there are ravenous creatures. Maybe they have young nearby in a lair, and chasing you takes them further and further away from their offspring, in the case of, say, a bear or something like that. So maybe they won't do that based on that sort of common sense. Number three, obvious deterrents to pursue, such as a pool of flaming oil. A secured portal will modify the monster's behavior accordingly. So if somebody flees and throws a whole portal on the door behind, and the monster comes up against that and tries it a couple times and realizes it can't get through the door, maybe it just loses interest. Fleeing party behavior, number four, fleeing party behavior and or possessions noted by the opponent party will modify pursuit desire. So it's obvious that they're running away with a big chest that they're carrying and obviously protecting. Well, what's in that chest? Now we got to know. Number five, relative speed will cause pursuing party to cease fruitless chase if they are obviously being outdistanced. except if pursuers are player characters who must state they are halting such a chase. So, yeah, they're saying you don't make up the minds for player characters, so let them decide on their own. Number 6, otherwise, 50% of the time. D6, 1 to 3 pursue, 4 to 6, a break off pursuit. Easy enough, right? Uh, Oop, we got to go up over here to this other section. Where are we at? Encounter reactions. Good stuff here. Ooh, I'll tell you what. We're right about that time, so I'm going to cut this off. We'll do a third video on this thing. I know it's not a huge supplement, but there's a lot of good stuff in here, so I kind of want to enjoy it as much as possible. And that means taking a look at each thing and talking about it as much as we do, as much as I do. And George today chimed in a couple times. Thanks very much, George. I appreciate that. And I appreciate everybody who follows the channel and chimes in when they get the chance. So please do, if you're catching up with us on Twitch here, do follow the channel and do chime in when you're following the stream live. And also remember that if you are catching up with us on YouTube, well, let's not forget, Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, that's when we do the recording of this live on Twitch. Hey, Sarah's here too. Hey, thanks very much, Sarah. Appreciate that. Monday and Thursday, and then soon afterwards, we load it up to YouTube. Usually it's up there within an hour. It's easy enough. Everything's archived on YouTube. So if you catch up with stuff on YouTube, by all means, subscribe to the YouTube channel and click that little bell so you get notifications when new episodes are uploaded. Feel free to make comments on videos that you want to chime in on, and be sure to give us the thumbs up on any videos you like and or enjoy. We appreciate it. I want to say this has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.